The mysteries present on this planet are shocking to us because they are stretching the boundaries of our common understanding to the breaking point. Overwhelming, and everywhere we look, we are observing things that are not only out of place, but they are also not making much sense to us. These certain things would suggest to us that we have completely missed something astonishing, and the only logical answer is if we consider a civilization of advanced technical abilities that was present on this planet before we were. From Malta to Cuba and stretching from Japan to Scotland, we are confronted with structures and artifacts that would suggest that the builders had advanced knowledge of maths, astronomy, geometry, and knew of Earth positions in the solar system. Not only this, but the ease in which these ancient things appear and the complexities involved in their existence would suggest that they were built and left here deliberately, almost as if an ancient civilization left us a message, and we do see major signs of a countdown or a warning clock at Giza, which, by the way, is the central location of all the Earth landmass, and the coordinates of its location on the Earth just happens to be the same as the speed needed to travel at to reach the speed of light. Coincidence? We think not. Our obsession with the Giza Plateau in particular, the Great Pyramid, is only gathering momentum. From the first glint of interest in these ancient marvels regarding our ancient past, it has only gathered more momentum. More of us are awake and awakening to these very anomalous clues that overwhelmingly suggest that we have completely missed the point all throughout our struggle to understand history. The crediting of these things to a primitive people is an insult to human intelligence. One such anomaly that is out of place is in that of the Laos stone jars. Wait till you hear this. Laos is a strange place. Despite the country's potential, it has remained poor. This is largely because of the power struggles between communist and royalist forces, as well as in their participation in the Vietnam War. A series of bad judgments has kept the country from thriving, but have tried to make real efforts to open the doors to the world, and a few curious minds have made the trip. Of course, among the beauty and seeming serenity, there are still things left behind from the conflict in the 20th century, and this makes Laos a minefield, literally. To be discovered here is a megalithic architectural landscape that is not repeated at any other location on the Earth. The Plain of Jars is so desperately stunning that it is as if it is trying to tell us something. The usefulness of the jars is very apparent. Of course, they could have been used as flower pots or as storage chambers for just about anything, and nothing significant has ever been recovered that reveals its true original purpose, so this leaves our speculation on the rampage. In an effort not to get carried away as to what was taking place here, we must first establish an overview and not make immediate connections to ancient batteries like the Baghdad batteries, though it is interesting to note that Laos has ambitions to be the battery of Asia, fueling speculation about its ancient past, and in fact, if this country knows the true purpose of the Plain of Jars. These jars aren't secluded to a few hidden jars. They are clusters where they are found, and they are still being documented in their hundreds. This is one of the three most enduring archaeological mysteries in the world, and it does suggest a previous civilization was more advanced than the current civilization that has emerged with these stone jars already in existence. And get this, a researcher working on the site has stated that the site in Laos has seldom ever been visited by humans. In fact, he says, there is no evidence that a human being has ever investigated the site at all up until now. These sites were first reported on by Western archaeologists in 1935. It wasn't until the 1990s that researchers were able to begin systematically exploring the massive region, particularly due to the high volume of unexploded bombs left over from the US Air Force offensive during the Vietnam War. The 15 newly discovered jar sites add to more than 90 previously recorded locations, indicating the distribution of these artifacts was more widespread than archaeologists assumed. The new sites reveal another 137 massive stone pots found in mountainous forests in the Shankwang province. Very little is conclusively known about the people that created these large stone jars, or the jar's true purpose. The artifacts are thought to date back to sometime between 500 BCE and 500 CE. The general scientific consensus at this stage is the jars were used in ancient burial practices, although others suggest they may have been used to store water or even brew alcohol. These new discoveries expand the mystery of the jars by revealing their presence across even larger spans of land, and it is completely unknown as to who built these things or what the exact purpose is. It could be that in the very remote past, that Laos in fact was producing battery power. To power what? Well, that is no doubt the stumbling block. There is nothing present today that they would have been powering, but consider a site that can recharge something. If a vehicle already had a battery, then perhaps this was a recharge site for some sort of vehicle. Just a thought. Where these giant jars are found, there is no evidence of occupation at all, not even ancient settlements. However, there is evidence of them having been quarried at a site several miles from these final resting places. All found at the top of hill points weighing several tons each, and with no apparent reason for their existence. These things are dated to 500 years BC and is one of the strangest mysteries in all of Asia regarding our ancient past. A number of intricately carved large stone discs were discovered alongside the jars at some of these new sites. The imagery on these discs varied from human figures to geometric designs. The archaeologists hypothesized these discs to be decorative burial markers. However, the kind of decorative carving recently uncovered at these new sites has not been consistently seen at other sites, making it difficult to interpret their purpose. These new sites add to the intriguing mystery of Laos' Plain of Jars, affirming there is still much more to be discovered. Stifling progress has been the slow clearance of all the unexploded munitions in the region, limiting movement for archaeologists. However, the scientists believe there are probably more undiscovered sites in heavily forested, unexplored regions, so many clues are yet to be revealed. More than 90 jar sites have been identified within Shankwang province. Each site has from 1 to 400 stone jars. The jars vary in height and diameter between 1 meter and 4 meter, and all are hewn from rock. Their shape is cylindrical, with the bottom always wider than the top and identified as granite and limestone rock. These stone jars are undecorated with the exception of a single jar at Site 1. This jar has a human frogman bas relief carved on the exterior. Parallels between the frogman and the rock painting at Huashan in Guangxi, China have been drawn. The Chinese paintings, which depict large full frontal images of humans with arms raised and knees bent, are dated to 500 BC, the same date estimate. Since most of the jars have lip rims, it is thought that the jars originally supported lids. Although few stone lids have ever been recovered, this may suggest that the bulk of the lids were fashioned from perishable material. Stone lids with animal carvings have been found at a few sites such as Ban Phakio, Site 52. The bas relief carvings are thought to depict monkeys, tigers, and frogs. Between 1964 and 1973, the Plain of Jars was heavily bombed by the US Air Force operating against North Vietnamese and Pathet Lao Communist forces. The US Air Force dropped more bombs on Laos, primarily the Plain of Jars, than it dropped during the whole of World War II. This included 262 million anti-personnel cluster bombs, and an estimated 80 million of these did not explode and remain a deadly threat to the population to this day. Lao legends tell of a race of giants who inhabited the area and who were ruled by a king named Kung Che-ung, who fought a long and ultimately victorious battle against an enemy. He supposedly created the jars to brew and store huge amounts of Lao Huai. Lao means alcohol, Huai means jar, so Lao Huai means rice beer or rice wine in the jars to celebrate his victory. Another local story states the jars were molded from natural materials including clay, sand, sugar, and animal products in a type of stone mix. This led the locals to believe that the cave at Site 1 was actually a kiln, and the jars were fired there and are not actually hewn from stone. Another suggested explanation for the jars is to collect monsoon rainwater for caravan travelers along their journey at times when rain may have been seasonal and water was not readily available on the easiest footpaths. Rainwater would then be boiled, even if stagnant, to become potable again, a practice long understood in eastern Eurasia. The trade caravans that camped around these jars could have placed beads inside them as offerings, accompanying prayers for rain, or the beads might simply have been unassociated, lost items that were found nearby. Whatever the true purpose may be, whatever reasons these things exist, the fact we don't know but are trying to understand would suggest that yet again, these things are the workings of a lost civilization, and we will probably never know what these things were, and the fact is that at some point, someone will come along and say they are this or they are that. And the majority of us will believe this at face value, no matter how flawed the theory may be. What do you guys make of these very ancient things? Comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.